Hello and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri.
And Amy Cornell.
It's finally here. The Amazon Author Formula Workbook is up for pre-order on Amazon. I can't believe it. It's finally up. So that was very exciting. That happened this week. And we are doing a really cool pre-order promo. All the details, I won't spend time on it during the podcast, but definitely look for all the details in the show notes. How to enter is super easy. Basically, you're getting entered into the contest when you pre-order the book on Amazon. We're giving away 10 Amazon page power-up packages. That is such a mouthful. I was doing videos yesterday for our promo, and I had to say that repeatedly. I'm like, we should have come up with a better name. Something that was a little less complicated to say, because saying that fast 10 times in a row was a bit much. But we're doing that. Everybody who pre-orders the book gets a my Amazon Mastery tip. So everybody gets that. All the other good stuff is all in the show notes. And we're going to be doing quite a number of promos. If you listen to the Reddit show that we did on Ask Me Anything, I'm also going to be doing one of those. And I don't have the exact date for that yet, but we will definitely announce that. And I am also doing an Ask Me Anything on socials. So if you're not following us on social media, be sure to do that. I am on Instagram at The Real Book Gal, on Facebook, The Real Book at The Real Book Gal, and all of that is also in the show notes. So definitely be taking a look at that. So today, and speaking of Amazon, we're doing a show this show is all about Amazon's ever-changing algorithms. And I did some deep dive research on this. So in May, Amazon changed all their algorithm, according to something that I read. Amazon changed from the A9 to the A10 algorithm, which, according to Amazon, has introduced a more nuanced approach to ranking, which is what the show is all about. So, but the heart of this, and there's a lot of information out there on the Amazon algorithm and this change. What really struck me is how many authors are still laboring under misinformation. And some of that, hopefully the majority of that's going to get addressed in this podcast. But at the heart of what these changes are is Amazon is really beginning to more and more respond like Google, which makes sense, right, Amy? Because basically Amazon is, yes, you buy stuff on Amazon, but Amazon is really one big search engine.
Yes. And I would say even more so than Google. Amazon is a search engine that has a vested interest in what you do next,
Right.
Like Google is very experience oriented, but Google, as far as we know, let's not put our tinfoil hats on for that, does not have a vested interest in every single, search result that comes up. They're just looking for, relevancy and things like that. But Amazon, it's like Google on steroids, because they have a vested interest in you doing something while you're on that site and spending some money.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. If you hop onto Google and just do some random search and don't do anything, that's not really, Google's just like, yeah, whatever, but because Google will always make money on Google ads. But for Amazon, as you pointed out, that is a much different story. What is really interesting is if you listen to our website SEO show, you're going to hear a lot of the same information in this, because where Amazon is going is that they are not only mirroring what Google does, but consequently, the SEO tactics, so the search engine optimization tactics that website owners implement to get ranking on Google, are very much mirrored on Amazon now. And Amy can speak to this, because she and we do SEO calls every month about our website. SEO is a weird monster, right?
Yes.
It Tells you, it's like, ah. What's interesting about search engine optimization is that at its very core, what Google cares about is they care about a quality link, so meaning your website, with quality content and something that a consumer is going to that resonates with what the consumer searched for, and that's going to help them answer questions, entertain them, whatever that is. And now Amazon is basically very much the same way. And I think some of this stuff also is because there's a lot of AI content that's hitting Amazon too. AI generated content, meaning not talking about the AI stuff that Amazon already implements. But Amazon is getting so art so poorly written light content books is not a new chat GPT thing. That has always been an issue on Amazon. But now, with so many books written by AI, and Amazon, because I just uploaded my book to KDP, Amazon asked you to check a box. Did an AI create this book? I mean, it's not like Amazon has a system. I mean, maybe they do, and I'm just unaware of it. But to the best of my knowledge, Amazon does not have a system that literally can ferret out a book that's written by a machine, an AI,
Right.
versus something that's written by a human. And maybe they do, I don't know. So far, I haven't seen any of it. But what Amazon is really doing is they are, through these tactics, they are trying to ferret out books that really have no backbone. And I don't mean poorly written books, I mean books that don't have any sort of actively engaged anything along with it, which a lot of AI books, unfortunately, like people write them and then boom, they throw them up on Amazon and hope to make a bunch of money, right? So the first piece of this is Amazon is really emphasizing external traffic. Okay. So not only rewarding listings, book retail pages that attract visitors from outside Amazon. And I'm not talking about running Facebook ads or Instagram ads separately. I'm talking about organic traffic that's hitting your page. So through blogs and social media and email campaigns. And what this is doing is it is encouraging a more robust brand, and we're going to talk more about the brand throughout this podcast, but it also encourages more activity around a book. Having a website. I cannot tell you how many times that I do talk to authors who have launched a book and don't have a website, right? And Amy, we've ferreted through a lot of these where we tell authors, you have to have at least a basic site. And apparently now Amazon is really paying attention to that, because typically thinly written books don't have any, the author doesn't, there's no website, there's no nothing. And I'm not talking about anything written by AI. I'm just talking about authors who don't take their own success seriously.
Yeah, 100%.
And where this comes in for Amazon is not just Amazon forcing you to do work externally, right? And to promote your book, but this also taps into the user experience, which again is really all that they care about.
Right. I mean, the one thing to remember, for some of you listening may sound like feel like drinking from a fire hose, because we're throwing a lot of technical stuff at you. But just remember, Google wants their search results. They want it to make Google look good. People use Google because it works. And Google has advanced a lot in the last few years for the user experience. They are prioritizing the user experience and what they are showing people. So Penny and I have gone through so much with our SEO adapting to that. And Amazon is doing very much the same thing. And that's one thing you always have to keep in mind. Amazon wants to sell books. They would love to sell your books, but you have to make sure you are providing something that makes them look good, which will give them a reason to show it to shoppers.
Right, exactly. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, there are even more hoops that Amazon is making me jump through. Yes, that is true. But if you've been doing all the right things up to this point, then
Right.
the majority of you are probably going to be fine. And that's another reason why we wanted to do this podcast, because I have found in my research of this topic that there's a lot of fear mongering going on. And I have had many conversations with Amy about our own optimization and our own visibility on Google. And I get that there is like, you know, um, optimization, algorithm changes are always scary because you never know how it's going to shake out. But at the end of the day, all of this comes back down to the user experience, especially like the next one, Amy. And I know you talk about this a lot because you do a lot of our retail page evaluations. You want to take this one?
Yes. Okay. So the organic sales. Whew, okay. So I like this because we're big fans of ads, obviously. I actually have this conversation with our clients a lot, Penny, because it's amazing how, again, a lot of our clients are learning a lot. And I love that, that they are in this to learn, but it's a lot to keep track of. But one really simple way to look at Amazon ads that I like to remind clients of, it's probably one of the only things you can do to get in front of new potential readers and buyers on a daily basis. And that's usually kind of a light bulb moment,
Yeah.
because nobody else has the time or energy to literally market their book every single day. So paid ads are obviously, they have their place. It's really important for like the long term to keep that train moving. But with this shift with Amazon and where they're going, they are going to be paying a lot more attention to organic sales and customer interest. And this plays into the last point that Penny made, traffic from outside of Amazon as well, and then conversions on that traffic. And so this is a lot about your retail page, also what you're presenting. This means your first impression really, really matters. We say it all the time, there's no such thing as good enough, when it comes to your cover, when it comes to your description. Like, you have milliseconds to potentially pique someone's interest once they land on your retail page. So you really don't want to take a chance with not optimizing that to the fullest. No stone should be left unturned. Amazon offers a lot of free features that I still, it blows my mind how many people don't take advantage of those. That's a big focus for us with clients. And I'm going to do a shameless plug for for Penny's pre-order in her book right now. That's the whole reason. The prize pack, what we focused on, because it is so important, your retail presence. So, I mean, that is a huge reason why we've been doing these a lot more for clients, anticipating that this is the direction Amazon is going in. And quality content, being strategic, making it a real experience for the consumer. And your retail page is one of the easiest ways to do that, especially since it's your point of sale location,
Yeah, exactly. And it is, and it again, not to keep comparing Amazon to Google, but I'm going to do it anyway. Google, here's a really weird optimization trick that Google rolled out a bunch of years ago, and they've always adhered to it. Google will prioritize nice looking sites over train wrecks.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it, like you think, well, that's just being biased, and maybe Google doesn't like my site, but I like my site, and that's fine. But websites, much like retail pages, they have to adhere to a list of, 10 things or 20 things, or, they're, even if your site is dark and foreboding, and maybe you're selling a crime thriller or something like that. Like, I get it. Your site doesn't have to be everybody's cup of tea, but it does have to appeal to the list to the checklist that Google has. And retail pages are very much the same. We preach this. We have actually podcasts on Amazon retail pages. So we preach this a lot. And your retail page has to be a reflection of not just your book, but it has to be a reflection of the reader, as
Mm-hmm.
well as your professionalism. And this is where details matter. So even something as minute as not putting up an author photo and just being a gray box on Amazon can potentially tell Amazon that you don't really care about your brand, right? It's a very, I mean, I think the long and short of it would be that details really matter
Mhm.
and details are starting to matter. And another reason why Amazon again is doing this is because the majority of people who write books in AI just to make a quick buck or whatever, they generally don't care about the details. And we see this all the time when we're doing Amazon optimizations and things like that. I mean, and Amy, speaking of optimization, we really haven't seen a change like this, whether or not you want to call it a seismic shift in their algorithm update. But this hasn't really changed how we do our keyword research. It hasn't really changed that because it's interesting. I talked to a couple of clients that we've worked with long term, and they haven't necessarily seen their retail pages tanking. Their keywords are solid and all this other stuff because they've been doing all the right things. But have you seen any changes in how Amazon, what Amazon is presenting to you in terms of keywords or anything like that?
I would say it's interesting. The more, and this has always been, I mean, we've always been big proponents of keyword strings and using keywords that mimic shopper behavior in terms of, if you're writing nonfiction, those people are looking for answers to specific problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they're looking to learn something very specific under a certain topic, industry, whatnot. And same thing with fiction. There aren't a lot of people that will just like, I read, and they may say I read everything, but when they go looking for a book, they're still looking for something specific. So that's always been key, is mirroring really specific. You're better off mirroring more specific shopper behavior than you are going really broad, because, and we've mentioned this on an Amazon update show, maybe more than once actually, because it continues. It's one of those things that we saw that, and some things go away. Amazon kind of tests things and then they disappear.
Yeah.
I still continue to see, Penny, that if you are broader searches, less specific searches, you are more inclined to see books, the books that show up in those results will exactly match, like their titles will match the search term. So if you say like dangerous romance or something, you're likely to get a bunch of results that actually have the word dangerous in the title or subtitle.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So the more specific you are, I personally still think the better quality results shoppers are going to get, because it gets much more nuanced. You know what I mean? Versus these broad terms where it's almost like, okay, Amazon sees that you're just throwing kind of a general search out there. They're going to kind of give you the easy answers back, if that makes sense.
Right. Exactly. And the other piece of it is that so seller authority and reputation is something that Amazon looks for. And again, this is not new. This is something that we've been talking about for a long time. So there's no, so all this panic out there about the algorithm change. I think if you're doing all the right things, there really is no reason to panic. Just keep doing all the right things. But in terms of seller authority, reputation, and the other piece of it is customer engagement metrics. So what Amazon means with that essentially is if you have a book description that doesn't necessarily really genuinely reflect the book. And again, I hate to keep throwing AI under the bus because we're getting ready to do a show on Chat GPT and ways authors can use it. Probably will drop next Friday. But when you have, we all know that sometimes chat can overstate what something is. Like Amy always loves to say, "Oh my gosh, chat is just so excited about everything," right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that triggers Amazon is when a book description, for example, is not only problematic but really doesn't it is a book description that's written for a mega best-selling book, not necessarily a low quality, poorly written book that doesn't really cover the content that the author has said. So that's and I realize that non AI written books sometimes also qualify for this when the author doesn't get the book description quite right, or the book description is low. That can impact your customer metrics. But the other piece is your book price. So this is where Amazon this is also part of the customer engagement. So if a customer lands on your retail page and your book is priced at $50 and for a print book, a paperback, I've seen it, it's a thing. Um, you're not going to make a buy unless for whatever reason the consumer is your mom and she absolutely has to have a copy of your book. The majority of customers are, I don't want to say price sensitive, but we there is a particular price metric for every genre that you want to pay attention to. And again, we've done a show on this. Very, very important. Um, and that is really where, so one of the things that I talk about in the Amazon author formula, and again, we talk about it in the workbook, is the Amazon relevancy score. And that's really what all of this comes down to. So Amazon and Amazon doesn't, let me just be clear, Amazon doesn't call it a relevancy score because that's my term, but Google refers to it as a relevancy score. And basically, the results have to be relevant to the search. That's really it. It's very, very basic math. And that's where all of this stuff comes down to. Okay. The other piece of it is, so obviously, book covers and you can have the best book description in the world, but your book cover has to align with your book description and has to align with the user experience. Amy, do you want to, because I know you have very strong feelings about book covers.
I do. And I think the frustrating part is that I give everybody, certainly our listeners, but just authors in general, I give everybody enough credit that they've had that experience when they've seen a book and they've seen the cover and they've gone, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, we're all consumers here. We know when we're impressed. Some things impress us, other things do not. And I think we all know what a really incredible book cover looks like. But we talk about this all the time too, Penny. It's so easy to get in your own way when you fall in love with a concept or you fall in love with something that you started or that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't see past that. And I think that is probably the biggest issue typically, because I think, I think most of our listeners probably have pretty good taste and they can be really objective when they are the consumer, when they are the shopper. But it gets a lot harder when it's your baby and it's your project and you had something in mind, think how many iterations we went through with the cover for the workbook, just getting it exactly right, because there's always just, ooh, this isn't quite right, but this is great. Are we done? Do we want to be done? Like,
Yeah.
All of that. So it's really hard, but don't get in your own way by being so married to your cover and a concept that you can't be objective about what's really working in the marketplace. And it sounds simple, but truly, I mean, granted, there's always going to be the outliers that land on the bestseller list where the cover is just okay, but that's generally not the rule. For the most part, if you go to and look at some lists, bestseller lists for categories, you are going to see some pretty great covers. And I will say, especially in certain genres, you tend to see themes and things like that. And as you said, the website preferences, Penny, it may not be your cup of tea, but if you want to sell books, that's what readers are buying. That's what they're responding positively to. So to some degree, you have to leave your preferences at the door, unless this is just a passion project and you don't really care how many books you sell, or if anybody ever reads it and you just want to say, I did it to check it off your list, then go for it. But otherwise, as Penny's been saying, the reader experience, it's not just us saying it. Amazon is now prioritizing it even more than ever. And the cover is a huge part of that.
And in one of the videos that I watched as I was deep diving for this episode, this one video, this individual started to talk about more creative ways that you can self-design your own cover. And that's actually when I stopped watching the video.
Oh gosh.
I know. It was a little, well, it was like a lot disconcerting. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's just so much, there's so much unfortunately, there's so much bad information out there. So I think that the other piece of this is, and I didn't even realize, so one of the videos that I watched, this person said, okay, so we have to stop keyword stuffing our retail pages. And I'm like, when was that ever a thing? But here's the interesting comment on that is, so SEO, search engine optimization experts, used to recommend keyword stuffing in order to get more visibility for your website on Google. And Google at some point was like, no, we're not, that's not a thing. We're not allowing that anymore. I don't know why it took Amazon so long to catch up. I kind of think that hasn't taken Amazon that long to catch up. It's just that now it's kind of making the rounds that you don't want to keyword stuff. So by keyword stuffing, what we mean is when you're reusing like murder, mystery, thriller, amateur sleuth, and you're using that in very unnatural ways, right?
Mhm.
So I've seen that. And I see this in particular with subtitles on books, where subtitles have all of their keyword strings jammed into a really obnoxiously long subtitle.
So yeah, it's like a 3-line book title.
Oh my gosh. And it's so distracting. You're just like, oh, and what you're essentially doing when you use keyword strings in a very unnatural, crammed, let's uncomfortable way is you really are piquing Amazon's interest and not in a good way. And they're looking at it and they're like, well, you're trying to trick us. So they basically, it can impact the ranking of your entire retail page, even if you just do that on your subtitle. So if you're listening and you have done that, I would definitely want to go back or contact your publisher and have them change that. There's nothing wrong with having a keyword string in your subtitle, but not 25. So, do you know what I mean?
Right. And Google, this is another, and we talked about this on the, I believe we talked about on the website SEO
Uh-huh.
show as well, but Google, Amazon, all of that is getting so much more intuitive. So it's not as literal as it used to be. And that was one thing that Penny and I really, that was a big light bulb moment for our own SEO,
Yeah.
was understanding and getting over what we'd been trained to do for, over a decade in terms of how keywords are categorized and ranked and things like that, is that, complementary phrases and keywords and things like the systems are sophisticated enough to recognize that that is what your book is about. These are who your markets are, things like that. So it's gotten so much smarter and so much more intuitive. To Penny's point, you don't have to stuff these verbatim awkward phrases into your retail page everywhere in order to get the point across.
Yeah.
It really, you can do it in much more finessed ways. And I assure you, Amazon will still completely understand what's going on your page.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I mean, we've had multiple conversations and we've talked to companies that specialize in SEO and with regards to our website in particular. At the end of the day, folks, what this comes down to is really just the user experience.
Mm-hmm.
And as AI becomes more intertwined on Amazon and other sites, it's forcing everybody to really up their game because that is sometimes the only way, which kind of surprises me a little, even if I'm saying this, but sometimes I think that's the only way to delineate between a real author and a chat GPT author, right?
Right.
So that's, and I think that's just really where everything is changing. So the other piece of this too, and Amy, I'm going to let you take the second part of this, is the 30-day launch strategy. I cannot emphasize how important the pre-order is. We always talk about the pre-order. The pre-order, my book is in pre-order only for 30 days. I was kind of a maniac about that. I'm like, I only want 30 days and I want 31. I only want 30 days as a pre-order because I have particular strategies that I want to implement during that pre-order. And optimization is actually the strategy. Yes, we're running a pre-order promo. I care about pre-orders up to a point, but I really care about Amazon, you know, categorizing the book correctly, even though obviously we're doing optimization and everything. But your post launch, your 30-day post launch is also really crucial. So if you are leaving your book up on Amazon to kind of see what it does on its own, I can guarantee you that it's basically not going to do anything. Right. And where I think a lot of authors get caught up in it is it's very easy to get very excited during the 30 days, as you should be excited when your book launches. But it's very easy to get excited during that first 30-day launch where you're like, I'm selling books. I don't need to do marketing. And I hear this also a lot. I'm selling books. I don't need to do marketing. But what happens is that when you hit week 2 and week 3, and in particular week 4, all of that starts to tank. And then it becomes much harder to resurrect that book.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And if definitely, if you find yourself at that point and you're not in a position to do all your own marketing, or you just weren't prepared to take it over, you're then looking for a marketing partner. And that
Yes.
takes some time too to find the right person. So, not trying to freak anybody out, but you're really looking at, by that point, you're what, 2, sometimes 3 months out of the gate
Yeah.
before you have a real marketing plan in place. And that's not the best way to go about it by any means.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that you brought up the Amazon optimization, Penny. Like, that is so, we say it all the time. I know it doesn't sound super sexy when authors come to us and they're like, okay, I want to make this work. It's my first book or it's my third book and I want to do things better. What do you recommend? And so often we do a critical assessment of their Amazon presence, what they're already doing, because we're big sticklers for building off of a really solid foundation. And that's where the Amazon optimization comes in. And so we'll get back to them. We'll say, okay, we definitely recommend these things with Amazon. And I'm sure a lot of times some authors are like, well, that doesn't sound as fun. It's like, it may not sound as fun, but it is definitely what's in your best interest long term. As much as we'd love to work with a lot of our clients forever and ever, we realize that's not realistic. And Penny and I have always been aligned with that. We want authors to wrap up a collaboration with us. They're stepping out the door like when many steps and tiers ahead of where they started.
Yeah.
Like, without a doubt, I love that we can feel so confident that the Amazon work specifically has set them up for so many more opportunities down the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting is that Amazon is also prioritizing quality over quantity in reviews. And it's always been, I mean, look, would I love to have, 10 or 20,000 reviews right out of the gate for all of my books? 10,000% I would. But there are a lot of review swapping services and buying services. And I don't know necessarily the quality of each. And this is not me saying, don't do that. But one of the things that we do know is that Amazon gets hit with a lot of low quality reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And that is also a problem because reviews on Amazon have always been a problem. This isn't new to this algorithm change, but it is great news for authors who struggle to get reviews. So Amazon would prefer, as opposed to having something that sounds superficial, like, oh, this was a great book, thanks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which tends to be a little bit in a pay when you go into a pay to play situation, you tend to get more superficial. Yeah. Where they sort of sound like they're not really, they didn't really read the book or whatever.
Nope. And as you've been saying since the show started, all goes back to the user experience. We are all consumers, and most of us are not only not swayed by those superficial generic reviews. If anything, it kind of makes us second guess whether we're going to buy that product.
Right, exactly. So I think that your marching orders really, again, if you've listened to us for a while, you probably know we bang this drum a lot and you're probably doing all the right things. If you're new to the show, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Definitely go back because we have a whole bunch of optimization shows and Amazon specific and all the things. We just had a really, really long show. Amy just pointed that out. I didn't realize it was like almost an hour on doing book events. But your sole focus should be on the consumer. So driving external traffic, most of you are already doing that. And again, I'm not talking about running ads on Google or on Facebook or Instagram. Driving from social media platforms, having an author website. Email newsletters are great. I realize it's not always every author's thing, but we have an author that we're working with and she has a whole bunch of books out and email newsletters are, she and I are going to be talking about that, are just so beneficial. Don't overthink it. We have a show on email newsletters. Go check it out. Optimize listings for engagement, right? So make sure that you are using all the tools that Amazon gives you, not just the fact that you can sell your book there, but A+ content, which we did an entire show on A+ content also. And then, make changes to your book, book description, or if you have a publisher, see if they're willing to make some modifications. And by that, I mean, if you've won an award, if you have a standout review, you always want to lead with a standout review on your retail page. The only thing that matters, and I know Amy and I have said this probably collectively now over 50 times in this show, the only thing that matters is your end user. And that should be the singular focus of your Amazon retail page. So did I miss anything?
No, this was exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And definitely, I mean, like I said, we're all doing battle with the changing times. And one of those is, a lot of people going out there and just creating these low quality books on using AI. That is forcing the rest of us to really level up a little bit more. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, my book is up for pre-order. Check the show notes. We'll have all the information there. I'm super excited to know what y'all think. And by the way, thank you so much for the recent reviews that we've gotten on the show. We really love reviews. And be sure if you're not subscribed to the show, be sure to subscribe so that you will get a notification every time a new show drops, which that does every Friday. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.